Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new session from the Barcelona Cybersecurity Congress for this digital summit with the IoT World Congress. This is Oriol Torruella, Director of the Cybersecurity Agency of Catalonia, and I will be moderating this panel session titled, How is Incident Response Doing in the 21st Century and the COVID Era? It's a pleasure to be here with you and deal with one of the most trendy topics currently in cybersecurity landscape, incident management and response. Since a long time ago, incidents have been one of the most relevant issues in cybersecurity. Some measures, like creating teams for incident response, creating specific knowledge and frameworks, and coordinating efforts to respond, were put in place to face this big challenge. However, cybercrime or cyber attacks is one of the most rising business right now. It sounds reasonable then that the amount of incidents that companies, public administrations, or even individuals are facing increase at the same speed. Several studies conducted by companies like FireEye, Palo Alto, Accenture, IBM, or similar show that security breaches have increased by approximately 70% since 2014. We all have had knowledge of sound attacks recently to big names and companies. Cybercrime figures start to have a significant relevance worldwide, with an estimated impact of businesses of over $5.2 billion on costs and losses due to those cyber attacks. Attackers have innovated so much in their TTPs that they can produce faster, more effective, and even optimized attacks, which makes it even harder for those responding to the attacks to keep at the pace. Lack of resources, talent shortage, and fast adaptive business are some of the challenges that incident responders need to tackle in order to do their job and keep incidents under control. With the corona crisis, all these conditions have evolved even faster. But not all is lost. In this panel session, we will discuss how to tackle the current challenges that incident response has in front and bring you some light about this topic. To that purpose, we have a brilliant panel composed by Carlos Fragoso from One Security, a company specialized in IR operations. Carlos, hello. Good afternoon.
Hello, Oriol. Thank you for the opportunity.
We have Jamie Collier at FireEye Mendian. Hi, Jamie.
Hi there.
And Omer Cohen, head of Cortex Customer Success Team at Palo Alto Networks. Hi, Omer.
Morning.
Well, I will do your presentations when you start. So Carlos, you will be the first one participating in the panel session. So Carlos is an incident response and forensic consultant and the team leader at E1 Security, covering different disciplines. With more than 10 years of experience on IT security field, Carlos has worked with security teams, CERTs, law enforcement and intelligence agencies, focusing on the reactive and investigative fields, but providing also strong background on the preventive aspects. Carlos also collaborates with SANS Institute as an instructor. Carlos, the stage is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Oriol. You can just enable sharing the screen, please. Okay, so let's go then. Okay, so thank you and welcome to this session. And of course, welcome to the new stage of being always compromised. Is the new state. So when we think about our organizations, the first thing to consider is the work we deliver in cybersecurity. We have the C-level people, like the CISO, working with vulnerabilities, with the threats from a high-level perspective, like being a high-level commander. And now what we find is with this current situation of the remote working that organizations had to transform in a short time frame, open probably big holes into the perimeter, or allowing minimizing some of the policies that were in place. And of course, the COVID situation that is, we are suffering right now, this pandemic, and people, this security awareness that the employees and the people, or even people who work in the companies, they are afraid, scared of this COVID situation, and maybe there are some threats that are masked through the COVID message. So that's from the high-level perspective. But if we go deep to the blue team, the people who defend our organizations, our daily job is to try to detect them and try to react to what they do. I'm not going to go into the gory details because my colleagues will talk more about this later. But at the end, you work hard, but someone else probably detects your guest before than you, or something happens in your mouth or in your nose. No, it's ransomware. Something explodes in front of your face. So then, this is a real picture from my colleagues. When something happens, the party begins, the call conference, your customer calls you and, okay, we have a problem, we need to handle that. And the first thing that most of our customers have is many questions. You have some of them on the list, but many more. Was information exfiltrated? Which is the impact? Can I contain right now, or do I need to identify what happened? And they want answers now. And forensics and response is not like magic that you can do it in a few seconds and answer all that. Probably my colleagues with the technology in the future, that will be possible. And nowadays it's human minds combined with technology for delivering that. So that's when we land into the customers, or the customer has the incident commander, is the central stone of the response, the person who is going to take the lead and make this magic happen in hopefully in the least time possible. So the expectation when you go to the customer, you expect people working in a professional way, big screens, the data centers with everything in place. But the reality is not like that. What you find is chaos. People fighting, arguing between each other, it was your fault. And people, they think they are going to get fired because of this incident, and it's like a complicated atmosphere, let's say. And of course, the data centers are not like you see in the pictures. Or sometimes you find things like this in the picture. This is a real picture from an incident we had in Latin America. So at the end, when you deliver an incident, it works like a project. You need to, one of the most important things is to put all those pieces together, this puzzle. You have the people who govern, the people who investigate, and the analysts from the different fields, but keep each one of them in their boxes. Don't try to mix them, it doesn't work very well. And this is a highly complex in big investigations. Of course, for daily investigations, this should be as simple as possible. So when you handle the incident, many people, they had the bad questions. They think, okay, I need to know why did it happen, and probably this is not the right question. The first question should be, how can I contain? So you have to complete. This is the cyber kill chain. So try to try to know what happened from the point of view of the impact, and then you will take probably weeks or months to discover the other things. And this happens with strong combination of individuals who are very skilled, and also the technology supporting and providing this information. If you don't have the evidence, you don't have the information, or you want to do it with a small team, try to escalate to thousands of systems, you need to put layers between them. So you here have some of the list of the key things you need to consider. One of the first things is to automate or orchestrate. I have seen organizations with small teams, not more than my fingers in this hand, dealing with thousands of systems easily. And you have other organizations with hundreds of people and probably not many systems and being covered, but the thing is that try to automate is impossible to handle, especially during the incident, short time frames, in very relevant answers that need to be provided for management. So that's very important. Threat hunting. I know my colleagues probably will talk about that, but threat hunting is a hot topic. We need to assume that the threat actors are already inside, or there will be in a few hours or minutes or seconds. So we need to be constantly reviewing our organization to identify those fingerprints from the attackers and try to see if they are already there or not. That's well, this will provide an easy and quick response to the incident and better contain at the early stage. And you have many other things. I'm not going into all of them, but one of the big things is to understand the environment. In many of the investigation, it takes weeks. I have been now in an investigation in Mexico, and to understand end to end from the public service to the mainframe of the organization, the backend, took us 2 or 3 weeks to understand all the pieces. So this is complicated and needs to be improved, and we need to be quicker in that. Collaborate between the teams. Nowadays, it's impossible to have one company dealing with everything. So you have your managed service provider, your retainer, intelligence providers, and they need to be mixed together. Probably the salespeople won't be very happy with that, but from the technical point of view, is very, or I would say definitely convenient. You need an infrastructure ready to answer questions, to get the evidence easily. If you need to analyze something and it takes 1 week to get the evidence, and this week dealing with a ransomware incident from a new threat actor, and this is at the moment taking us about 4 days to get some of the systems. It's not reasonable completely. So the projects, incidents are not something that happens in days, takes weeks or months to complete. Probably the incident will be some weeks, but the investigations are usually months, and especially if you have like special guests to the party, like regulators, the cyber insurance, the court. Last year we were in a case in Latin America where a threat actor was arrested, and we had to provide to law enforcement and to the company everything for going into court. So one of the most important things is incident readiness. I have been talking about that in the previous slide, doing cyber exercises, having your evidence or your information ready for your handlers so that they can work, and the information is not stopping them to achieve the goals. Anything, the processes, everything that you could put all those pieces in advance, the better the answer that your team will have. So to conclude with my speech, it's taking this chaos to the euphoria situation like a DJ. You have the people, and then your people are happy again. And of course, taking your managers from the crisis level to the zen state like Marie Kondo, and being calm and not being scared again because of the threats. So that's what I have to talk, and I pass the turn to my colleagues.
Thank you, Carlos. Great intervention. I guess that Marie Kondo will send you a commission for this publicity that you've done.
Probably.
It is a very nice idea to have everything in order before facing a cyber incident. So indeed, your presentation is very useful.
Definitely.
Now we'll go ahead with Omer Cohen. He's the head of Cortex customer success team at Palo Alto Networks. Omer is an experienced incident response investigator and manager, and has a wealth of knowledge and experience in the areas of cybersecurity, security research, software development, and system administration, as well as network architecture and design. Omer has delivered and implemented numerous projects involving cutting-edge technologies for multiple security-related applications, in addition to providing accurate and appropriate information, security consulting, and incident response services to Fortune 500 companies and other leading organizations. Please, Omar, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Ariel. Carlos, that was a really good kind of step into this whole conversation. I really appreciated kind of the first part there, that we need to be prepared using orchestration and automation. That's exactly it. And I remember a few years back when I used to do incident response as my my main job, that was the most difficult thing, being prepared for an incident, having the right tools and organization to get there. And the mess and disorganization that you see when you step into those incidents with customers, that's exactly what we see with our customers as well. So I used to be one of the first Demisto customers, now called XOR, and I help customers deploy XOR today, every day with my team in the region, and that's exactly the most difficult step to get started. Trying to understand what exists in their environment today, and that journey towards automation and orchestration is a very challenging one, especially during COVID, during the last few months, almost a year now. When you're collaborating, and you've shown in one of your slides getting on the phone, people like calling it a war room, getting everybody in the same place to understand what's happening, share information, share knowledge, bring in consultants like yourself and to bring in the expertise. So much more difficult during these times to get on a Zoom with 20 people, having a very challenging kind of communication and collaboration. So the benefit of preparing in advance and having those playbooks, those run books, prepared in advance in case of disasters is what helps us a lot. Together with the intelligence gathering and internal mapping of everything that we have in our environment. And again, especially during these times, having the challenges of the organization and having to get a range of all the budgets that you need and plans in advance for such an incident is challenging. So I completely agree with what you're saying. What we really need to do is make those preparations in advance, understand what we're stepping into, make sure we collect all the intelligence that we need, automate as much as we can. Not just XOR, there are a lot of great products out there, but start that journey of automation and orchestration if you haven't yet. Collect that intelligence, collect that evidence internally immediately as the incident happens. One of the things we've been seeing in the last few months also with new customers is that slow response time. Because people are working home, they're busy with other things that, you're at home, your family, people started baking now. So people are busy doing all sorts of things, and they miss that first alert. They miss that first indication of something's going on. So having that automation in place is absolutely key in getting ahead of your attacker, and getting that information in there. I think Jamie is gonna talk next about the intelligence gathering and all of that. So with that, I'll hand it over to him.
Okay, thank you, Omer. Last but not least, of course, Jamie Collier from FAR Mendian. Jamie is a cyber threat intelligence consultant at FAR Mendian, where he guides organizations to the latest developments in cyber threat landscape and help them to develop their intelligence capabilities. Jamie also collaborates as a research affiliate at the University of Oxford Center for Technology and Global Affairs. Jamie.
Thanks very much. And yeah, I want to talk about a few things, but really focusing on the intelligence components of incident response. And I think it's here, it's already been discussed. It's really that intelligence can provide that primary source of context for an investigation. And I think Carlos captured a lot of the spirit of an incident response engagement really well. This is often a chaotic environment. You have all these different questions, all these different stakeholders worried about a lot of different areas. So I think the challenge, as much as it is about responding to the incident and bringing in that remediation, it's also about navigating through the distractions, sorting through all of that noise, whether that's different stakeholders, whether that's about focusing when it comes to the incident response itself. For those responders, what should they be focused on? What part of that response plan should I be prioritizing? What should I be looking for? And I think that's really where intelligence comes in. Really helps to provide additional context on the who, the what, the why, the when, the how of an attack. And I think above all, when it comes to a lot of this, it's about determining the stage of an attack, identifying the effects, being able to take rapid action. Intelligence often gives you all of that. And I think what we're seeing at the moment with ransomware, it's already been discussed clearly, but I think that's something that really highlights how speed is incredibly important. We've seen Ryuk, for instance, it's been reported that it's infected endpoints with as little as 2 hours. As one of my colleagues said, you could go for a lunch break and then you could attend your company all hands and find when you get back to your desk that you've experienced a ransomware attack. So actually speed is increasingly important for some of these sort of attacks. And then I think being able to have intelligence when you're dealing with such tight deadlines really helps you to focus on what to prioritize, where to look. But I think the other side of this, and we kind of looked at this a little bit, but that actually incident response itself can be a hugely valuable source of intelligence. So I think this has been discussed, but actually it's through incident response that you get a really deep understanding of an attack lifecycle related to a threat actor, for instance. So we can think about broader telemetry through endpoints, for instance. That can often provide us a good idea of where malware is targeting, the global view of the sectors, the regions it's in. But actually, it's that incident response engagement that really gets under the hood. It allows us to really understand in a much more detailed, much more kind of greater level of granularity, what's going on in that attack lifecycle, how are they kind of moving through the attack lifecycle, how is an actor escalating privileges, etc. So I think that's the first thing when it comes to incident response being a source of threat intelligence. And I think the other piece of this, we often work with organizations that are interested in primary source intelligence because of those benefits related. And one thing that is always true is some of the best primary source intelligence is that exists within your own network. So actually looking at what's going on in your network allows you to understand the threat reality in a really clear way. You can kind of get all sorts of insight through understanding what's going on, who's targeting your network, as well as that external perspective. And I think the intelligence from an incident response can also satisfy different stakeholders. So clearly when we think of an incident response, we're thinking probably of operational intelligence, the TTPs, the sort of malware being used by an operator. And that's absolutely important. We can take all of that insight and feed that to our security operations center. We can feed it to our vulnerability management team to kind of figure out which patches or which vulnerabilities to prioritize when it comes to patching, for instance. But I think maybe what's missed is that actually the intelligence garnered from an incident response can also be very useful for a strategic audience, for that security leadership, for even an executive team. It's here that we can, through articulating who is actually targeted in an organization, help them to understand what security controls to insert, what are their risk tolerance levels, understanding the threat landscape in a broader way, but making sure that that's informed via actual practical experience on the front lines. Now, the last thing I want to kind of discuss is looking at intelligence beyond a network perimeter. And you might think, well, what's this got to do with incident response? And what I mean by beyond the perimeter, I'm thinking about intelligence on, say, dark web postings, for instance, whether data for an organization is exposed on public clouds, for instance. Well, actually, what all of that does is it effectively lengthens the attack lifecycle and your visibility into it. So if, for example, some threat actors have gained access to some of an organization's credentials and they're selling those credentials online, well, actually, as an incident response team, we can kind of start to understand, okay, some of our credentials are sold online. That might mean that there's an attack coming. We can start to be much more proactive in thinking about that attack, actually, being really kind of out the blocks as an incident response team, making sure that that doesn't happen. On the flip side, I think there's also a sense that if an organization, let's say they experience a data breach, it's easy for the incident response team to feel like maybe the job is done once the threat actor has been removed from that network. Maybe we send out a GDPR email that we've all seen saying, we're sorry to our customers that the data was compromised. But actually, what if that data is then being sold on those kind of criminal marketplaces, for instance? Actually, we can do a lot to understand what's the impact of that data breach. Are threat actors trying to use say stolen credentials to conduct further phishing campaigns? Are they selling that data on? Are they likely to use it and monetize it themselves? So actually taking a very wide and expansive view of intelligence can feed into incident response in all sorts of what I think are reasonably kind of new and exciting ways. So with that, I'll pass back to Oriol.
Thank you, Jamie. I think that you've all posted a lot of the most relevant things that currently we are facing in the incident response landscape right now. Well, perhaps we can just go through some questions that I will just send that to you. All of you can respond. These are not especially directed, but of course some of them have a particular bias, relevant to your presentation. So Carlos has told us that one of the most common things that you find out is some disorganization. Things are not well done. Generally, organizations are not well prepared, not ready to face what happens on a cyber incident. But do you think there's any way that a company that wants to can organize themselves in order, to face an incident with everything in place? So where should they start for? Which are the things? Is there any standard? There should be a standard for being well organized.
I don't know if my colleagues will add something, but as Oriol put my name at the beginning, I will answer before. Well, I will say that all organizations can improve. There is a margin for improvement for all of them, from the small ones to the big ones. Is what we do many times as a consulting project. Unlikely, it's more often after an incident. Always an incident is an opportunity for change, and we do our consultants go to the customer, and we do some let's say capability building projects. But the first thing is to measure your maturity level. In that side, I will say that is at least that I don't know of. Of course, you have the NIST. You have many organizations trying to standardize how the things should be done. But I will say that organizations are not something homogeneous. You have like a big company in many countries, and maybe depending in the country that you have tiers. Have a tier 1 business in some country, and you need the maturity level you need there needs to be higher than in other countries. So of course you need to have. I will say that you need to have the tools to measure your maturity level and define a roadmap. Realistic roadmap to improve. You cannot go from 10 to 100 in 1 year. That's impossible, even for the most affordable companies.
That's true, Carlos. But what would you like to find in your customer? Organization infrastructure when you go ahead, just to deal with an incident. What's crucial? What should be there? Or otherwise, there's no way to respond to that incident?
Well, for sure, you need to have to be able to have all the data sources that you need. The evidence the evidence could be gathered in the data leaks, where you have the information that is put inside there, and you have interfaces to query all this information. That's cool, but Of course, you need to read the endpoints also, because all the information is not centralized. So you need of course, I will say that technology is important to have visibility of the threat actor while he's in, or his or her is inside, but also the possibility to query all those sources of information in an agile way. It's not like the old-fashioned forensics that you can clone devices, VMs, whatever. When you need to do that over 1,000 systems or hundreds of systems, you need to do it in a few hours.
I completely agree, Carlos. Having that internal kind of data sources is crucial, and in terms of preparedness, it's exactly that. What I've seen some customers do is go over kind of the attack life cycle, the attack kill chain, and go over those steps of the different breach and ask themselves, am I able to investigate and ask the right questions about each one of those steps? When I want to understand the infiltration point, the attack vector, do I have visibility on my perimeter? Do I have visibility on my endpoints to ask exactly those questions? When it's about lateral movement, what type of visibility I have inside my network? And then again, external sources, like Jamie said, how do I know what my company looks like from the outside? And what's my ability to correlate the evidence I find with intelligence out there and get that in advance? So anything from log sources to be able to search things, as well as really understand what's in my network in terms of asset management and understanding of business units and how they interact. That's what incident responders do inside teams, inside companies when they're not responding to incidents. That's at least what they should be doing, I think.
And I think on top of some of that, there's also those organizational components, aren't there, in terms of an organization having clear point of contact, knowing who to call, what to do if someone's on holiday, all of that stuff that's pretty boring. We don't kind of necessarily associate it with the kind of spooky world of threat actors compromising networks, but actually a lot of that infrastructure is really important. I think another thing that's always worth kind of bearing in mind for an organization that might be experiencing an incident in the future is to try and set those executive expectations. Because I think previously discussed in this discussion about how some of this can take a bit longer than we would ideally like. But for someone that's not familiar with cybersecurity in that senior leadership team, they might want the threat actor removed immediately. They might want it to be all solved within 10 minutes. So being able to set those expectations, being able to kind of articulate all of that is really important. And I think it's actually something where tabletop exercises can really help to help organizations not only understand what this could look like, but also to identify any of those problems, whether at that kind of technical operational level, but also in the organizational area as well.
So you've mentioned, sorry, Homer, go ahead.
Just to add, as part of those tabletop exercises and kind of a red team exercise and so on, companies end up building those procedures, those playbooks that they'll have prepared for an incident. And it starts from the very small, simple things like phishing investigations that just tremendously help free up your time to handle with the more complicated things. But as you experiment with those challenging, once in a week, once in a month, once in a year type of incidents, you learn from each experiment. And to do those postmortems, create those kind of internal documents, procedures really, really helps to get started. And that's what, Carlos, you're super happy when you step in with a customer and they have something. It's not perfect, right? That's why they called you. They need some help, but they have something ready to show you what they've done, rather than come and say like, I don't know what's going on, Carlos. Tell me what you think.
So then you need technology, organization, and then an expert like you just to help them organize that. So is that what you suggest, right?
Yeah, I will say also because this is a work team. You cannot do, you are in an IR engagement, you need all the different internal teams and contractors and intelligence providers to have the full puzzle together. I still remember one case that I had in a financial customer where, they had this incident, and you need, when you are evaluating to investigate something, you cannot investigate everything. It could take for all possible combinations. It could be more than a year probably to get everything. And if you don't have a tip or a clue or how to go, you need to define some hypotheses, and those hypotheses is based in a combination of internal intelligence from previous incidents, if the customer had previous incidents, or maybe they were not internal, but from similar customers that were provided by the ISAC or your threat intelligence provider that can share with you similar attacks that others suffer. This information combined with the experts inside, because at the end you cannot do magic. You cannot sit in your laptop and make things work again. You need to put your ideas into the brain of other people so that things happen finally. And of course, I will say that it's more kind of a mindset that the organization needs to put into people, so that when there is an incident, it's like a challenge. No, it's like a roomscape. We are all together. It's not like it's your problem to solve. You are getting paid to solve it, because we need them and they need us to solve it.
And Carlos, that's what I say, that it's really important to document and learn from that. 10 years ago, when we had the big incident, you would always need to depend on that one person who knew that specific part of the network or product or technology to be able to help. And you actually, especially during COVID, when people are remote and not necessarily available, you can't really be dependent on that one person and having them have that knowledge in place. Got to have that preparedness and do that, breach assessment and readiness, like you're saying, the maturity assessment that you're doing to your customers. That type of services is crucial. And if you have some sort of a SOAR platform, that's what you do day to day. You prepare scenarios and you build those playbooks so you're ready for an incident.
Well, you've mentioned that every time there's more data to analyze, there's more information to process when handling an incident. So automation is key. You mentioned that, Omer, and I'm just questioning, to what extent do you think that automation is possible? I mean, to help us and assist us on the specific incident response, what information can we automatize? How can we save money just to invest perhaps in responding to the incident afterwards, and so on, please?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's always a challenge getting started with automation and orchestration. There's a comic on XKCD that talks about the effort to value. If you're doing a task that takes an hour, but you only do it once a year, how much time is it worth investing in automating it, versus a task that takes 2 minutes, but you do it 5 times a day? How much time you should invest in automating it? And that's why the majority of our customers tend to start with a phishing investigation, where it's such a tedious, repetitive work, and so easy to automate, at least to such degree, together with machine learning that we have in XOR to help you kind of make decisions based on previous data and external data sources. Really gets you to a point where all of the kind of simple tasks, simple investigations can get you a very high degree of confidence, 95% accuracy of determining if something is really phishing or not, or you would need to call an investigator to take a look at it and make their own assessment. So that's exactly the journey that we're going with. And sometimes what we also do is just bring in case management. So forget about automating everything at first, and that's one of the big mistakes some customers do. They say, okay, I'm not going to go live with my orchestration platform until I'm able to automate all of my procedures and then go live with that. That could take forever. And as everybody knows, doing a little bit of IR or work with the security team, every few months, just like Carlos said, and Jamie, you're learning new things, you're adapting, you're changing. So you're never going to be done. You need to be able to start with something small, concrete. And again, even simply bringing case management. Let's bring in all the cases I see from my different alert sources. Do very simple enrichment. That's super, super easy. Bring that intelligence Jamie's talking about. Enrich everything I have to be able to make an assessment, and do that manual investigation. Do that for a couple weeks, see what my landscape looks like, and then generate those reports to help me understand where am I actually spending my time on. When I'm going based off of tickets or cases and not really analyzing what I'm doing, it's really hard to say where I should start automation. So by bringing everything I have, looking at my MTTR at a manual part, will let me know, okay, I need to start first with this use case or that use case. It really changes between companies and organizations and industries. But having that information really helps you get started. Because if you see that there's this type of incident, only happens twice a week, but it costs 15 man hours to investigate, maybe it's worth spending a week or two automating it. So it'll take 10 minutes. All of the data collection, all of the analysis, because with automation, you can really do amazing things, not just do lookups and searches, but also communication. You can reach out to people inside your company or outside via email or web form and ask them to fill in information. For example, when you see suspicious activity, you can send an email to the person managers or other colleagues and say, hey, are you familiar with this person? Is what they're doing legitimate? Are they currently traveling or not, especially big risk during COVID? And by that, automate the response instead of having a human being look at it, make a phone call, and so on. So I'd say look at what you have, assess your environment, see what's costing you the most time and effort, bring in all the people that have that knowledge, and start with that when you step into automation.
What I really like about that as well is I think within the industry, we all love technology and we all love to get excited about the latest shiny toy, whether that's automation, whether that's, say, AI, which is kind of related to automation clearly. But I think just so often security teams are asking the question of, how AI or how automation can improve my security posture. When I think as you're saying, the better way to look at it is what are the problems I've got? What are the range of tools and solutions to those problems? And then, hopefully automation is part of that story. But actually, right. When you go from that approach and you're not just kind of blankly, you're not blindly, purchasing a load of automation tools and just kind of throwing them in, hoping it makes a difference. If you've got that impetus, a clear sense of what are the problems, what are you actually trying to do? That's when I think automation or any other kind of technology can actually move the needle, because it's much more qualified in that sense.
I'm sorry, but it reminds me when because I'm traveling right now, and I went buying a feeder for my cat while I was traveling, and one of the things that the shopkeeper told me, like, you can't have something that doesn't have batteries, because if the power runs out, your cat is going to die out of hunger, right? So just because you really like automation and you really want to use that new tool that you purchased, make sure you use it correctly and to the right challenge, and not just throw it at everything, because your cat might die.
I will say, in top of what my colleagues already mentioned, that at the end, if we forget, or not forget, we think about what happened before we started to automate things, because automation is very old. When we were scripting, we were automating already, not only with SOAR tools. So what we try to do is, if from the 100% of the things we need to respond to or to do, we need to put into the systems the things that are not complicated, or let's say are predictable. So the things that are predictable could be, let's say, 50-60% of the things that should be completely automated. It shouldn't take probably, unless it's something very complex to integrate, shouldn't be that complex to do it, and will benefit and leverage our resources. So what happens with the rest? The rest needs to be filling with the technology, with the things that the computers can learn from humans. They are our colleagues, and they try to understand how we work. And then that's what machine learning and all AI and all these very marketing words say about the things that are going to support us, learning from us. Probably they will be also, let's say, contaminated from our let's say, bias. Probably because analysts and people, they are from specific countries, they work in a specific manner, but they are going to feel and be like our colleagues, that the person you will hire and you will teach them to do the work. But for the rest is the unexpected things. That's why humans still, we are alive to respond to things that the machines will not, probably never, or hopefully never cover. That is, our mind will cover a few situations that we will be the masters to define how to respond to that. And probably in the future, we will be working in the beach or in our homes like right now, and working only 10% of our times because the systems will do the rest. But nowadays, I will say from my side, I think 60%, maybe 50 or 60% of the things could be automated, but the rest, there is still a gap with what the humans do and the systems do.
And it also speaks to one of the challenges we had for many years, even before COVID, the last, I want to say 5-6 years, the challenge of people, right? We want to keep our people challenged and interested. There's this risk of people that we see good investigators, good responders, jump between jobs just because they're bored, and there's just not enough good people out there. So by automating the boring stuff and keeping the people busy doing the interesting, challenging things that computers can't do because it's unexpected and it changes, and having them deal with those new, interesting attacks also keeps your staff interested, helps them get challenged, keeps them fresh. They don't do copy and paste all the time. They actually investigate user brains, and everything that's too complicated, everything that's not complicated, everything that's simple, instead of having those tier 1 analysts or having those outsourcing that, just automate it. Saves you money, keeps your people happy. That's also a good approach.
Sounds very, very interesting. So you've mentioned that automation is key, just to make people keep fresh, interested in those important things and all that stuff. What about intelligence, Jamie? Because you talk about that intelligence and threat intel program, something that can only be interesting for technical people, but also for executives, which can see that they can save money, they can save operations, but also they can benefit from knowing better who is the actor that is attacking, responding better, facing better those challenges that affect their business. Do you think
sorry, go ahead.
Do you think that everyone needs a threat intel program or something similar?
Yeah, and I think you've really nailed it there, because I think intelligence is often associated with just indicators, but I think at least Mandy, what we do is we kind of look at the different stakeholders involved. And, you know, people talk about strategic intelligence, operational intelligence, tactical intelligence. For me, I actually prefer to move away from those different types of intelligence and think of the different stakeholders. So for an executive team, they're going to be thinking about, you know, potentially going for a kind of risk management approach. They're going to be interested in cyber risk, the threat landscape, and what it means in terms of business impact. For security operations center, they're going to want to know what are the kind of most prominent threat actors, what are the TTPs, what sort of malware are they using. For a vulnerability management team, as I said, you know, they're going to be interested in what vulnerabilities are actually being exploited in their sector, in their region. It's an area, if we think about vulnerabilities, we see these named vulnerabilities like Meltdown or Spectre. They get a huge amount of media coverage, but actually rarely are they, in fact, exploited. So being able to have that context, hugely important. So I think the real test of intelligence isn't to just kind of create threat intelligence for the sake of it. It's the test of a good threat intelligence function is its ability to integrate across an entire security function, as well as the broader organization, you know, the executive team. So if threat intelligence is speaking to incident response, if it's speaking to threat hunting, if it's helping you patch, you know, if you prioritize your patching, if it's helping you decide about a, you know, risk kind of based decision, then that is where you're really successful. And that's because that means that threat intelligence function, they've identified the stakeholders in that organization, they've got to know them, and they've understood how intelligence can help them solve their own problems.
Yeah, definitely. I will say that what Jamie pointed out is highly relevant, and we see like something that is happening in the management layers is that they are more interested in knowing more about the threats. At the end, they are getting bored about seeing all those PowerPoints with vulnerabilities, and they want to understand more about this dark side of the threats and which is the threat landscape. It's like, okay, there are a lot of bad guys there, but which are the ones that are going to be pointing at me, and understanding how do they operate, and if you map this model of, let's say, of their let's say more tactics with the motivations, with many things that the higher layers, the managers understand much better, because they will more understand how, when you are investing in some of the technologies, the retainers, in many of those things, you're talking about how you mitigate not vulnerabilities but threats. You're moving to the other side and say, okay, I'm going to stop most of the tactics being used by these kind of attackers, and in case they succeed, I will stop or contain them faster, because I know how they operate, and as they change, they behave. The word is behavior. They behave in a different way. I will follow up and update my monitoring, my intelligence, my response plans accordingly.
Yeah, I agree that intelligence is key in understanding the risk that the company is dealing with, right? And it's not just internally with the IOCs I have and enriching them and understanding. It's even looking outside at my industry. How are my competitors being attacked right now? How is my industry being? What's the risks that are happening right now in general? And then being able to do that hunting internally and even automated, hopefully, really helps understand those risks. And when you're able to present to your board about, this is what we're doing to protect the company assets, this is what we're doing to do that investigation and get ahead of the attack, that's where we're able to show your value and justify what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, it's not every day that there's a major attack, and you need to be able to correlate that the work that you're doing is based on credible intelligence, either from in or out.
Very interesting. Well, guys, we are running out of time in this magnificent panel. I will just wrap up with a couple of ideas. The first one, I really feel that is, the main idea that you can extract from this session. Incident response is not magic. That's amazing. It's true. You need to have things in place. You need to have technology. You need to have a very good organization. You have to tidy up your home. And when an incident response is happening, it's better if you have intelligence in place. And if you have made automation, then probably everything will be better. So that Carlos and companies like his can do their job and help all the companies to really face an incident and respond whenever it happens. That probably will be someday or more than one day. So it's better if you are prepared, you're ready, you have everything in place in order to face this big challenge. As I mentioned, it's a shame because it would be hours talking to this great panel about this very interesting topic. I have to thank you all speakers for your time and your great contributions. And thank you all for attending this session of the Barcelona Cybersecurity Congress. Please enjoy the rest of the Congress and hope to see you at the meeting in October 21. Thank you all, guys, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, all of you.
Thanks, everyone.